Is Cedi Osman an alien? That's the question on everyone's mind this morning as the Cavaliers player was seen with some yellow liquid coming out of his nose after taking a hit to the face. Welcome back everybody, I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and if you're new here and enjoy learning about the underlying anatomy and mechanisms of injuries we see in the sports world, then please consider subscribing to the channel to be up to date with all future videos. This was a bizarre one, no doubt. Last night, Cedi Osman got hit in the face, and when he went down to the floor, it looked like he was bleeding yellow. There was like basically this yellow liquid that was coming out of his nose. We even heard one of the players on the court say that it was yellow and be really freaked out by this. So what in the world is this? What's going on? Is Cedi Osman an alien that we've finally now uncovered? The hit to Osman's face basically looked like it came right square in the nose, maybe on the left side of the face a little bit, but this wasn't anything significant enough that would, number one, make me think about something like a skull fracture or a fracture in the bones deeper inside the face that would lead to something like a cerebral spinal fluid leak. As the game continues, we then of course see this yellow stuff dripping out of his nose. No lacerations on the face or significant swelling or bruising that we see around the face itself. I think there's three possibilities of what people will think this might be, so let's walk through each one. The first thing is he has yellow blood. And right away I can tell you there's no chance that he has yellow blood. I cannot imagine in any way possible that this is blood coming out of his nose. We do have to account for the fact that there's like a yellow glare coming off of the court, but this is not yellow blood. We don't have yellow blood. The only thing even remotely similar that you might see is some people who have really like dangerously high levels of cholesterol might have a sort of cloudy yellowish tint or thickness to their blood when it's drawn, but not at all like this. This is not blood. We can cross that one off the list right away. The next is that it's a spinal fluid leak. Our brain is surrounded by something called CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. Basically, it's this clear fluid that sort of lines our central nervous system to do a number of things, but what we most often think about is sort of cushioning and protecting the brain. It also helps with some nutrient delivery. It helps to sort of clear out some of the buildup from the brain through things like the lymphatic system, but CSF is this clear fluid that basically lines the entire brain. Now, of course, the base of the brain, especially in the front of the skull, are all of the bones that form sort of the upper portion of the nose and the face. So one in particular, this little thin, almost shark fin thing we see here is called the ethmoid bone. And if we spin this around, you can now see how we actually see part of that bone back in the eye socket. If we look up through the nose, we can see part of that bone in sort of the roof of the nasal cavity. If I hide all the cartilage here in the front of the nose to really see those underlying nasal bones, we can get an even better indication of those areas. So it certainly is possible that somebody who has a fracture of the bones deep in the face, this fracture could continue up into a way where there was leakage, or basically you poke a hole in the floor of where that spinal fluid is collected, and you can get spinal fluid leaking from the nose. But what makes that pretty much impossible in this situation are a few things. Number one, it would not come out this fast. Pretty much right after Cedi hit the ground, there was like a pool of this stuff on the ground. And so if there was a crack in the bones of sort of the floor of the brain that was causing spinal fluid like this to leak out, he would have like decompensated, gone unconscious, been sent to the hospital, having lost spinal fluid this quickly. Usually when somebody has a spinal leak, it's just like dripping. It's maybe a slow drip. It's not going to pool on the floor within a matter of seconds unless there has been like major, massive trauma to the face, which he clearly didn't have here. The second thing is that it's not yellow. Spinal fluid is clear. I've seen it. This is something we sometimes have to check for in patients in the hospital when they've had some sort of brain surgery. There might be areas that weren't correctly closed, and so you might have a small drip of some clear fluid from the nose, and you can actually test it in the lab to see if it's mucus or if it's spinal fluid. So it definitely doesn't have this yellow color to it. Spinal fluid is clear. So if you see an athlete get hit in the face and have clear fluid running out of their nose, definitely have to be concerned about a fracture of the bones with a spinal fluid leak. But here again, way too much fluid too quickly. And number two, it's not going to be this color of yellow. It's going to be clear. Even if it were picking up some color from the mucus as it passed through the nasal passageways, it's not going to be this deeply yellow all throughout. It's going to have some areas of some yellow, maybe some snot within it. The third possibility, which I'm fairly certain is what's really going on here, is that this is just run-of-the-mill mucus. It's snot. Our nasal passageways are lined with mucus-secreting cells, as well as the sinus cavities that sit as these pockets inside the bones. These mucus-producing cells secrete this mucus to help protect from things like dirt and bacteria. They get stuck in that mucus, but then of course as that mucus is created more and more, it builds up, it fills our sinuses. That's what gives us sinus pressure when we have infections, and that's what ultimately becomes snot whenever we blow our nose. It's mucus produced by those cells to help protect our body from infection. Deep up within sort of the crevices of the bones within our nose, we have these passageways where that mucus can get from the sinuses into the nasal cavity and then ultimately drain out. So to me, that's the only really possible explanation for what we're looking at here, unless Cedi is in fact an alien. I will say it's a little bit like runnier and drippier than I would expect for just pure mucus, and when your mucus looks that yellow, it certainly could be the sign that you have some underlying infection or illness. What I suspect happened is when he first went to the ground before the camera zoomed in, he sort of blew everything out of his nose because it was hurting him. And when he did that, that's why we saw so much accumulate on the court. A shot to the face could have sort of dislodged some of this stuff. A shot to the face might have dislodged some of this within his sinuses and caused more to be quickly expelled, but I can't imagine that this is spinal fluid without seeing more significant evidence of clear trauma for Cedi. This is certainly not yellow blood, and so really the only other explanation for this is that it's just run-of-the-mill mucus that has a more yellow color to it than we would typically expect to see, which might be a sign of an underlying infection or illness. So that's it for the video, everybody. Make your own decisions. Do you think Cedi's an alien, or is this just mucus, like I highly suspect? Thank you as always for watching. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.